Good morning, ladies. Welcome back. So today we are going to be making pie crust. So I've already got us started here with our 2 2/3 cups of flour. And so this is our base we're going to start with for pie crust. And you're going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. So we're going to stick that in there and we're just going to take our fork and mix it into it. So next we're going to put our fat that we need into our pie crust. So there's different types of fat usually that you can do in pie crust. There's shortening, butter, lard, or vegetable oil. They all have their perks, they all have their drawbacks. So with shortening, you're going to get a really durable pie crust that you can really handle. It's going to hold up really well, but it doesn't have a lot of flavor. With lard, you're going to get more of that durability and more flavor with it. Butter, you're going to get a lot of flavor and it's going to make it that flaky, delicious crust, but it's not going to hold up super well. And vegetable oil tends to just make it really greasy. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do half shortening and half butter. I found that this recipe will give you that durability of the crust, but also give you that flaky, buttery taste that you love so much. So now that we have our salt and our flour in here, next we are going to, getting a phone call. We're going to add our butter. So you need half a cup of butter, which a half a cup is 1 stick. And what you're going to do is you want cold butter. So with our cold butter, I just sliced it up into little pieces like this. You're just going to want little cubes like that. So we're just going to dump all this in here. That didn't come apart very well, and then we're going to use pastry cutter and we're just going to mash it all up. If you don't have a pastry cutter, that is okay. You can just use a fork. I wouldn't recommend not using a mixer because you might overmix your pie dough and that's going to make it tough. So with this, we're going to take this and we're just going to mix our butter into here. Get a nice good base before we add our shortening. So you kind of just want to get, one time I've done this with frozen butter because it said really cold butter. That was a mistake because then it took me forever to get my butter cut up into it. So you want cold butter, but you don't want frozen butter. Some recipes call for that, not this one. So, and don't worry, we will be making a filling to go in this pie crust. I would never make a pie crust and not put something in it for you guys. And we are going to make my mom's blackberry pie, which is one of my favorites. Also a very delicious pie, but it's not one that has a set recipe, we'll call. My mom and grandma seem to just do it as they went, apparently, because a lot of the recipes they gave me was, you just measure till you think. So that can be a little bit hard to figure out sometimes. But they were always tasty. So next we're going to have our shortening, and we need half a cup of shortening. I always like to get these when I have shortening and don't have lard because they have the measurements on them, you can see. So it can just be a quick, I need a half a cup, and usually it comes in a cup. So we're going to cut that right in half like that. Put that back in this little container. And then we're just going to slice this up and add it to our pie crust. So just, luckily shortening is easy to get through like that. So we're just going to make little slices and put it in. And get all the grease off of my hands. Because shortening is very slimy. We'll call it, I guess. I don't know if you slimy, greasy, whatever. Okay, so now we got our shortening in here and we are going to just use our pastry cutter to cut it in because we want it crumbly, like little pea-sized crumbles. So we are going to do that. And once we get this all cut in, we just have one more ingredient to add. So one thing about this pie crust is it's only like 5 ingredients. So super easy. You just got your flour, you got your salt, your shortening, and your butter. And then we're just going to add some ice cold water to it as soon as this is all mixed in. So luckily, it's going pretty fast. So you don't have to sit here and wait around me working my dough. Okay. So for the most part, we have that all worked in. I will show you what it should look like. Get that piece off. It sticks sometimes. Okay, So it's a little crumbly dough like this. And next we're going to add 4 to 8 tablespoons of ice cold water. So I have them here. We're just going to add a little bit at a time because you don't want to make your dough really wet. You just want it to stick together. So we don't want a ton of water. We just want to make it so you can form it into a ball. So getting that worked in, and we can see over here our dough. I really am having trouble with words today, guys. Sorry. So here's our dough over here. See, it's getting a little bit sticky, but we still have a lot more dry over here. So we're gonna add some more water. And oh, keep your dough in the bowl. If you've seen in my videos, you know I can get wild with my cooking. Okay, so we're getting a bit closer here. Pie crust is always a good staple, which something I should have told you was this is a double recipe because I'm making blackberry pie. Most fruit pies you're going to need double crust for. So you need your bottom crust and your top crust. And that goes along with some savory pies too, like chicken pot pie. So I tend to always make a double batch anyway, just because I normally need 2 crusts. But if you're doing something like a pumpkin pie or something like that, then you're only going to need a single crust. So if you're just needing a single crust, then just half the recipe. So, okay, we're almost, I'm just going to put a little bit more water and that should be good. Get that all worked in. The dogs are going crazy out there, my goodness. Okay, so if you can see here, our dough is more pliable now and making into a ball. So what we're going to do now is we're going to chill our pie dough. So I'm going to get some saran wrap. We're just going to form it into a ball, wrap it in the saran wrap, and we're going to put it in the fridge for about 30 minutes. If you chill your pie crust, it's a lot easier to roll out. But if you put it in the fridge for too long, you're going to have to let it warm up before you do. So if you have it in the fridge for over 30 minutes, let it warm up because otherwise it's going to be too cold to roll out and your dough is just going to tear instead. So I will bring you back once our pie dough is chilled. Okay, so now you can see that we got a good boil going on here. So this is our blackberries and water, and we're just going to add 1.5 cups of sugar, which sounds like a lot of sugar, but I may not add the whole 1.5 cups. We're going to see how it goes. This is more of like a taste to your preference. And pie filling is very sweet, so you do need a lot of sugar. Okay. There we go. So now we're going to pour this in, finish that in there, and let this boil for a little bit longer. And I'm actually going to get a different spoon so I can test our sugar level. Yep, that's about right. You can probably go a little less sugar if you don't like it super sweet, but we always liked our blackberry pie pretty sweet. So now we got this going pretty good. Our last ingredient is just our thickener to thicken it up. And that's a little bit of cornstarch and water that we have here. So it's our little slurry. Let me see that. So now that we got this good little boil going on, we're going to add our cornstarch. I'm actually going to get a whisk for this. It's a bit easier. And we are going to pour our cornstarch in. And we may need some more. But the more you let it boil, the more it's going to thicken with the cornstarch. You just don't want to burn it. All right, let that thicken. I'm just going to add a little bit more cornstarch while that's going. Oh, there it goes. You can feel it starting to get thicker, so I'm just going to add a little more cornstarch. You don't want your pie runny because then when you cut into it, all the filling is just going to go everywhere. And you don't want that. You want a nice set filling, so it's almost like a jam or a jelly in it. So you do want it decently thick before you put it in your pie. And I'm sure there's other stuff that you can add in to a blackberry pie. But again, this is just my mom's recipe. This was a kind of go as you decide what it tastes like kind of pie. And I'm going to pass this one down because it's one of my favorites. You can see we got it. Ooh. Now we got it thick and going everywhere. So we're going to turn down the heat a little bit so it don't splatter on us. Get blackberry all over your kitchen. And you'll be able to tell when it's starting to get thick enough when you are stirring like this, and you can start to feel the resistance in it. And as you can see, we're getting quite a bit more resistance. So our pie filling is almost done. Also keep your face back because I just got splattered in the face by blackberry. It can get crazy. You don't want to burn yourself. All right, do you see now our thickness to our filling? So I'm just going to keep this here on low while we roll out our pie crust until it's ready to put in the pie crust. So, and this is how you make your blackberry filling. Very easy, 4 ingredients, but when you're putting in your sugar, definitely test before you add all the sugar because some people do not like it near as sweet as other people do. So go with your preference. And I will bring you back when it's time to roll out our pie crust and put our filling in. All right, guys, so now our pie crust is now fully chilled and our filling is all done on the stove. And so we just need to roll out our pie crust and get them in the oven. So what we're going to do is I found this trick seems to help a lot when you are rolling out your pie dough is to put a piece of wax paper down and lightly flour the surface. And then you're going to put your ball of dough on top of it and sprinkle some more flour on it. And then we're going to get another piece of wax paper and put it over the top. So we have our other half of our dough here waiting to still be rolled out for our top crust. We're going to start with our bottom crust right here. And you're going to need a rolling pin. And you're just going to roll out your dough into a circle. So it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. It doesn't have to be super pretty. I've never been able to achieve that perfect circle dough, I tell you. But what we're going to do is roll this out. And what works too is you can then turn your wax paper like this and roll out the other way. So it's a little bit harder on an island like this because the island wants to move with it. But I'm in a tiny kitchen right now and I don't have a lot of counter space. So if you don't either, then you know that you just have to work with what you got. And so now we're going to move this more this way and we're going to roll out. And this is also going to help keep your dough from sticking to your countertop, because I have gotten before where I roll out my dough all the way and I'm so excited because it's all perfect, and then it sticks completely to your counter and tears apart and ruins. And we don't want that. So this will help that, because the wax paper, it's just going to peel right off of. So you want to get it a nice round shape. And I know they have these baking mats, if you have ever seen those, that have the sizes of like, 9-inch pie crust, 8-inch pie crust. And that will give you more a guide to where your pie crust should be. I've personally never used them, but I've heard they're really helpful. What I kind of do as a guide is, once I get this all out like this, is I will take my pie pan and I will put it over the top of my pie crust. And if I have enough overlay, because you want to make sure you have enough overlay so it hangs over the side, because you want to be able to flute your edges so you have like your little cute pie crust edges on the end. So you want to make sure you've got that extra give, because also you need to come up over the sides of your pie crust tin as well. So we're going to make sure that is nice and big enough. So now that we got that pie crust all rolled out, what we do is take this off and move this here. I'm actually just going to do this. And then you're just going to flip over. And you can see it goes right into your pie dish. And you're just going to peel this off. As you can see, came off perfectly. No pie crust lost. And pie crust is super forgiving too. So if you have some little empty spots, you can fill them in. Just press in. It makes it part of the pie crust. Get it all fitted in here like this. So you have no gaps. And up around the edge. So see, not super pretty, but pie crust. We're going to put this over here and we're going to roll out our second piece. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to flour the surface a bit. This helps it not stick to your wax paper. And now we're going to make this into a little ball here. Put it here. I'm going to get another piece of wax paper because I dropped my other one. So we don't want to use that. And we're just going to get a new piece and pat this down. And I'm just going to add a little bit more flour after we pat it down so we don't stick. So, and again, same thing. We're just going to roll out. And again, sometimes it wants to move on you. So I think I got too much flour underneath. So it's making my wax paper want to roll with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this rolled out and I'll bring you back to show you what our pie crust, when we put our pie in, and how we're going to put it in the oven, how long we're going to time it. But this is wanting to fight me, so I'm going to go fight it back and get our top crust in. Okay, so I have fought and won my top pie crust and I got it all rolled out. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to put our filling into our pie crust and put our top crust on and put it in the oven. So we have our oven preheated at 425. And since we already cooked our filling on the stove, it does not need as long a time as like a raw fruit filling. So we're usually, when you have raw fruit in there, you're going to do it about 45 minutes to an hour. Since we already cooked ours, it's only going to be about 20-25 minutes at 425. So we're going to add our blackberries now. We're just going to dump in our nice thick filling. scrape all of it into it. There. So now we have our blackberries in. What we're going to do is we're going to flip over our pie crust onto the top. And so now we have our top pie crust. And now what we're going to do is see, we had that overhang for a reason. And we're going to take this up and we're going to flute the edges of our pie. And so the way I was taught to do this, you can do it several different ways. Like you can put it up around the edges and use the tines of a fork to make little marks. What I was always taught was to just get it up like this and use your fingers. So just press your thumb in between your two fingers like this. And that is going to make your fluted edge. Quick and easy, no special tools required. So we're just going to do that. And once we got this all around the edge, we're going to cut off all the excess dough. That was always my favorite part when my mom made these. When we were young, when my mom made any kind of dough or pie, all the extra she would cut off and she would give to me and my sisters so we could make our own little pretend pies and stuff like that. We did not make our own little pretend pies. Chunky thing, I would eat all my pie dough. I liked the pie dough. I still sometimes eat it, I'm not going to lie. But my sisters, they would save it till nighttime when we were in bed. And then they would make balls out of the Play-Doh, and then they would have a contest to see who could stick them to the wall when we were laying in bed. And let me tell you, that made some grease spots on our wall, and my mom was not happy about that. She'd always come in there, what in the world are these grease spots? And she did not find out that we did that until years and years later when we were older. Oh, she was still so mad though. Not the smartest thing to do, let me tell you. We definitely ruined our walls, but it was fun. So now that we have our edges here, most likely you should use a knife. I just kind of tore mine because I was not in the mood to dig out my knife. It'll be a little more prettier when you do use knives, but we are not exactly going for pretty here. So now we're just going to move our little excess pie dough here, and I needed a knife anyway. I should have got it out. You're going to make some slits in the top of your pie. You can do a design if you want. I always just do some slits like this. And then just some little marks in the middle. You want, I guess they're called venting. If you don't mark any slits in your pie or any kind of venting for it, it's going to end up boiling over and ruining your crust. So you want some of the steam to be able to escape. So now we have our pie here, and I'm just going to spread some sugar over the top of it and put it in the oven for about between 20 and 25 minutes, and we're going to check in and see how it goes. So I will show you what it's going to look like when it's finished. This is what it should look like right about now, and I'm going to stick it in the oven. All right, so our pie is now out of the oven, and we have it here cooling, and as you can see, we have a nice little golden brown crust. And if you have a deep pie dish like me, then your top of your crust is kind of going to fold in a little bit. Sometimes it helps if you want to flute it on the very edge like this on the out. I didn't. I just went from the top up, and as you can see, that makes it fold in a little bit. But we have a nice, sugary, pretty blackberry pie. And I will show you what it's like when it's all cut and we have a slice ready. So I hope you enjoyed, and follow for more.